I am sorry. The apology was better this time, less polished, more expensive. Thank you, I said. Pain crossed her face at the same answer as before. I almost softened. Then I remembered that softening was how I had trained both of us to avoid consequences. I mean it, I added. Thank you. But apologies do not undo the reason I was leaving, was the word slipped out fast. I sighed. Her face fell before she could hide it. The old instinct hit me. Comfort her, make it easier, tell her maybe. Instead I turned toward the soot-stained wall. I need you to understand something. I said I did not decide to leave because of one joke. I know. No, you know the sentence, not the weight. She was silent. It was the magazine profile where they called Lucas, your emotional right hand, and you said labels did not matter. It was our 2nd anniversary when you cancelled dinner because he had a bad meeting and needed to talk strategy. It was the way your family asked him about your schedule before they asked me. It was every time I stood beside you and still felt like a temporary clause. Claire's eyes filled. She did not interrupt. That mattered. I told myself it was fair. I said because the marriage was a contract. Then I started loving you, and fair stopped helping. The words settled into the dust, Claire whispered. I did not know. I know that was the tragedy. Not that she had known and enjoyed it, that she had not known at all. A shout came from the main floor. Boss, Manny called. Your lawyer friend is here. Of course he was. Martin appeared in the doorway wearing a suit that looked personally offended by the surroundings. He saw Claire, then me, then Claire in the hard hat. Well, he said, this is either progress or a very expensive workplace violation. Martin, I warned. Claire's posture changed, CEO returning, armor clicking into place. Mr. Shaw, she said. MS Bennett, I know who you are. That usually saves time. I rubbed my forehead. Martin looked at me. We had an appointment. We did. Yes, you ignored 3 texts. I assumed either emotional collapse or murder. Claire looked at me. I took out my phone. 3 missed texts, sorry. Martin glanced between us again. Should I reschedule? I should have said yes. Instead, I said, no, we can talk outside. Claire's face went still. There it was again, the real world, the exit plan with shoes on. We walked toward the bay door. Claire followed several steps behind, not close enough to intrude, not far enough to pretend she did not care. Outside, Martin handed me a folder. Short lease options. He said, you asked for neighborhoods near your studio. I felt Claire stop behind us. I did not turn. Martin noticed her anyway. He was a lawyer. Noticing discomfort was half his job. The Ballard unit is available next month, he said. Bakery downstairs, pet-friendly. Claire made a small sound. I closed my eyes. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Martin looked at me. Did I say something wrong? No. Claire stepped forward. Daniel likes older buildings, she said, voice controlled. The Ballard unit has poor window restoration and a bad rear stair. I turned slowly. How do you know that? She looked trapped again. Martin's eyes sharpened. Oh, he said softly. This is interesting, Martin, I said. No, I am enjoying not being the most invasive person here. Claire ignored him. I looked it up, she said. You looked up my potential apartment? Yes. Why? Her answer came after a long silence. Because I wanted to know where you might go. The honesty stopped me. No strategy, no excuse, just fear. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Martin, who occasionally possessed mercy in small amounts, said, I will wait by my car. He left. Claria and I stood outside, the firehouse in the cold morning light. I know that was wrong, she said. Yes, I am not asking you to make it acceptable. Good. She looked toward the old building. I never imagined the house without you in it. That hit harder than it should have. I let out a slow breath. You imagined the contract ending. Yes, but not me leaving. Her eyes returned to mine. No, that was Claire's whole mistake. Given shape, she had imagined legal endings, not absence. She had imagined clauses, not an empty chair at breakfast. I nodded once. Now you are. I left her there and went to speak with Martin behind me. The firehouse stood open, damaged, but still standing for the first time. I was not sure whether that comforted me or warned me. Chapter 5. The Bennett Group project meeting took place on the 43rd floor, where the conference room had a view of Seattle so clean it looked like a model no one had touched yet. I hated that room, not because it was ugly, it was beautiful in the way. Expensive things were beautiful when they had no memory. Glass table, white walls, silent screens, chairs designed by someone who had never slouched in grief. I arrived with June and our structural consultant, Dr. Priya Menon, who had forgotten more about historic masonry than most developers ever learned. Lucas was already there with 3 members of the capital planning team. Claire sat at the head of the table. There was an empty chair on her right. Usually Lucas took it. That morning a folder with my name rested in front of it. Daniel Hayes, not Hayes. Restoration, not consultant. Me. Lucas noticed at the same time I did. His mouth tightened. Claire looked at me. Daniel, please sit here. Every person in the room heard it. I did too, inside my head. I thought, the ceremonial chair upgrade. Very moving, comes with dental. Claire pressed her lips together. I sat. Lucas took the chair 2 seats down, which he managed to make look like a diplomatic incident. The meeting began with budgets. That was where romance went to die. Priya presented the structural report. June explained the wall moisture issue. I walked through phased restoration, emphasizing why rushing the event venue conversion would damage the building and increase liability. The capital team listened. Lucas waited. I knew he was waiting because men like Lucas did not attack until they had an audience and a spreadsheet. When my slides ended, he leaned forward. Daniel, this is thoughtful work, he said. A polite man's knife always began with praise. Thank you, I said. But the budget increase is substantial. It reflects conditions on site, or an overly purist restoration philosophy. Priya's eyebrows rose. I kept my voice calm. The city preservation requirements are not philosophical. Lucas smiled. Of course, but Bennett Group has to consider return on investment. We cannot treat every cracked brick like a family heirloom. Good, I said, because I did not propose that. A capital planner coughed. Lucas tapped the report. The concern is whether Hayes Restoration is the right firm for a project of this visibility. Your connection to Claire complicates perception. If costs rise, people may ask whether personal relationships influenced vendor selection. There it was, the cleaner version of contract husband. June stiffened beside me. Priya looked ready to dismantle him academically. Claire sat very still. I felt something inside me go quiet. Do not react, I thought. 6 weeks. Let the man enjoy his little throne made of insinuation. Claire's fingers curled against the table. I folded my hands, Lucas. That is a fair concern if the selection process was informal. It was not. I opened the folder in front of me and removed 3 pages. Hayes Restoration was one of 4 firms asked to submit preliminary assessments. 2 declined because of timeline. 1 proposed full facade replacement that would violate the landmark conditions. We proposed repair. Here are the review notes from the city consultant, including his statement that replacement would likely trigger a denial. I slid the pages down the table. Lucas's expression shifted. I continued. As for cost, the increase comes from moisture damage behind the east wall and the need to preserve original lentils above the bay doors. Dr. Mennon's report covers the structural risk. June has photographs. The budget is not padded, it is documented. Priya added calmly. If anything, Mr. Hayes is underestimating contingency by 3%. Thank you, Priya, I said. That was almost supportive, she shrugged. Accuracy is my love language. Nora, who had slipped in near the back, covered a smile. Lucas recovered. Documentation is appreciated, still in public perception. Claire spoke. No, 1 word. Quiet. Final. Lucas turned. Claire, no, she repeated. You are not raising public perception. You are using it to question Daniel's position because it bothers you that he has won. The room went perfectly still. I looked at her. She did not look back. Her eyes stayed on Lucas. Claire, he said carefully, that is not what I am doing. It is exactly what you are doing. I am protecting you. No, you are protecting access to me. The sentence cut through the room. Lucas flushed. The capital planners looked at their papers with sudden religious devotion. My heartbeat had become annoyingly loud. Claire continued. Daniel's firm remains under review like every vendor. If his budget fails, we will address it. If his work fails, we will address it. But you will not imply he is here because he is my husband when you know his assessment is the only one aligned with the city requirements. Lucas's mouth tightened. Understood. And you will not call him my contract husband again. Not in public, not in private, not as a joke. My breath left me there. It was late but real. Lucas sat back. Understood, he said again. Claire finally looked at me for once. I had no sarcastic thought ready. That absence seemed to hit her harder than any joke. The meeting moved on. Awkward but productive. Budgets were tabled for revision. Priya got her contingency. June got approval for exploratory removal of damaged panels. Lucas said little. Afterward, people left in careful waves. June squeezed my shoulder as she passed. That was fun. It was a budget meeting. Exactly. Expectations were low. Priya nodded at Claire. Good call on the lentils. Claire blinked. Thank you. Then they were gone. Only Lucas. Claire and I remained. Lucas gathered his laptop slowly. I did not realize. We were making internal disagreements personal now, he said. Claire's expression chilled. Daniel, do not, I thought. Do not enjoy this. Be mature. Claire's eyes flickered. I sighed. Lucas looked at me. Something to add. No, of course not. Claire stood. Lucas, he turned to her. You are off the donor walkthrough next week. His face changed. Claire, that is unnecessary. It is necessary. We have worked together for 8 years. Yes, which is why you should know the difference between a strategic role and a personal one. His gaze flicked to me. You are doing this because he is upset. I am doing this because I should have done it before he became upset. That was another new thing. Accountability. I did not trust it yet, but I recognized the shape. Lucas left without another word. The door closed behind him. Claire and I stood in the conference room, with the city shining beyond the glass. Thank you, I said. Her shoulders lowered slightly. You should not have had to thank me for that. No, I know. I walked to the table and gathered my documents. Her voice stopped me when you thought. 6 weeks during the meeting I closed my eyes. Claire, I am sorry. I am trying not to react to it. Are you trying not to hear it? Yes. And I am failing. I nodded. There was no rulebook for this. No polite social script for when your wife accidentally became a receiver for your private emotional damage. She took a cautious step closer. Did it help at all? I looked at her. What? What? I said to Lucas. The honest answer was yes. The safer answer was no. The true answer was worse. It helped the project. I said. Her face fell. I hated myself for noticing. Then I hated that. I hated myself. I softened my voice. It also helped me. She looked up. But Claire, one right thing in a conference room does not erase 3 years of me feeling optional. I know. Do you? Yes, she said. I am beginning to beginning. That was a fair word. I could work with fair words. I picked up my folder. I need to get back to the site, she nodded. As I reached the door, she said, Daniel, I turned. Do you still want to have dinner with Martin tonight? Yes. A small flinch. Legal dinner, friend dinner. Is there a difference? Yes, one costs more. A fragile smile touched her mouth. Then my mind betrayed me. If she asked me to have dinner with her instead, I might say yes, idiot. Claire's breath caught. I saw the words rise in her. Ask me, ask me. She did not. Instead, she said, enjoy dinner. I nodded and left in the elevator alone. I leaned back against the wall. The doors reflected my face for the first time in weeks. I looked less certain. That frightened me more than leaving. Chapter 6. Claire tried to plan our anniversary dinner like a merger. I found out because Nora was terrible at secrets. She called me 3 days before the date and opened with, hypothetically, if someone wanted to create a romantic evening without looking like she downloaded romance from a corporate database, what would that person avoid? I stood in the firehouse with my phone pressed to my ear, watching Manny attempt to convince a delivery driver that no, the original bay doors were not trash. Nora, this is general research. Tell Claire not to use place cards. A pause. Who said this was Claire? Do not use a printed agenda. Another pause. She did mention timing the courses. Absolutely not. What about a memory war, Nora? Too much for a hostage negotiation? Maybe, she sighed. I told her, despite everything, I smiled. Then the smile faded. Our 3rd anniversary had not been meant to be romantic. The date marked the contract's earliest exit point. I had planned to go alone to the small restaurant where Claire and I had signed the final private agreement before the courthouse ceremony. Not because I wanted to be dramatic, because some endings deserved a table, a glass of wine, and the dignity of being looked at directly. Apparently Claire had heard enough to find the restaurant. Of course she had that night. I considered not going. Then I decided avoidance was just another form of dishonesty. The restaurant was called Marrow, which sounded pretentious until the food arrived and justified every irritating syllable. It was small, warm, brick-walled, lit by amber lamps. 3 years earlier, Claire had sat across from me in a navy suit, reading the final agreement with a pen in hand. I had been wearing my only good jacket and pretending not to be terrified. She had looked up and said, You understand there is no expectation of romance. I had said, That seems efficient. She had almost smiled. Almost. That almost had ruined my life. When I arrived, the hostess recognized my name and led me to the back room. The entire space had been reserved, not decorated like a wedding. Thank God. No roses drowning in crystal bowls. No violinist threatening innocent diners. Claire had avoided the obvious traps. Instead, the room held small details. The menu from the first night, framed beside the door, a photo of the Thorn building after my studio finished its restoration. Peppermint tea on a side table. For her, a bottle of the cheap red wine I had ordered 3 years ago because I had been too proud to let her choose the expensive one. At the center table sat a wrapped box. Claire stood when I entered. She wore a simple green dress I had once told her made her look less like she was about to fire someone. I regretted ever being specific. You came, she said. I said I would. No, she replied softly. You did not fare. I removed my coat. Nora warned me about the agenda. Claire closed her eyes briefly. I fired the agenda. That must have been difficult. It had sub-points. Condolences. Her mouth curved. We sat for a while. Dinner was almost easy. The food was good. The wine was better than I remembered. Claire asked about the firehouse and actually listened to the answer. I asked about the Singapore call, and she told me the truth instead of the polished version. A hotel acquisition had stalled. A board member was pushing Lucas's strategic model. Evelyn was being Evelyn, which meant 3 compliments had been hidden inside 6 criticisms and a threat. I laughed. Claire watched me as if she was trying to memorize the sound. Dangerous. Halfway through the main course she said, "I have something for you." The wrapped box. My stomach tightened. "Clara, it is not a contract." That is exactly what someone would say before presenting a contract. It is not. I opened it. Inside was an old brass key mounted in a shadow box. I knew it immediately. The Thorn building. My father had kept a similar key on his office wall, not because it opened anything useful, but because it represented the first historic building he had ever saved. After he died, I searched for it, and never found it. I assumed it had been lost when medical bills forced us to sell half the office contents. My throat closed. "How did you find this?" Claire folded her hands in her lap. "Mrs. Whittaker remembered you mentioning it after your father's memorial." "I contacted the estate liquidator. That was 2 years ago." "Yes, you had this for 2 years." "Yes. Why did you never give it to me?" She looked down. I was afraid it would mean too much. The answer was so painfully clear that I almost could not breathe. I stared at the key inside my head very quietly. "I thought, you kept proof that you listened. You just never trusted yourself enough to use it." Claire's eyes filled. I looked up. She had heard. "Of course she had, Daniel," she whispered. I set the box down carefully. "Thank you. No, please do not thank me like I am a polite stranger." The plea in her voice broke through my defenses before I could reinforce them. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth." I laughed without humor. "That has become complicated lately. I know. Do you? Because the truth is I love this. I hate that I love it. I hate that you had it for 2 years and somehow that makes me feel seen and ignored at the same time. I hate that tonight is beautiful. I hate that a part of me wants to pretend that is enough." Claire went pale. I pushed back from the table, not standing, just needing space. "And I hate that you heard most of that before I chose to say it." She flinched. "You are right. I know I am right. I am tired of being right." The room seemed smaller. She looked at the table, at the wine, at the key. "I thought if I made tonight good enough, you might remember why staying could be good. At least that is honest. It was also wrong." "Yes," she nodded, absorbing the word. "I am trying to learn the difference between giving you reasons and giving you a choice." That stopped me because that was exactly the difference. And because I did not know whether she had learned it from me or stolen it from my head, the curse of this new strange thing was not privacy alone, it was doubt. Every good thing she did now came with a shadow. Did she understand me? Or did she overhear me? Did she choose me? Or did she react to my leaving? I stood. Claire did too. Panic flashed across her face, but she held still. "Good. I need to go," I said, her hands curled at her sides. "Will you take the key?" That almost undid me. I looked at the brass key in the box. My father, my work, my wife listening 2 years too early and speaking 2 years too late. "Yes," I said. Relief passed through her, but not as a reason to stay. Her relief broke. "Okay." I picked up the box at the door, she said. "Daniel," I turned. Her voice shook. "If I asked you to stay tonight, would you?" Honest question, cruel question, necessary question inside my head. The answer came before I could stop it. Yes, because I am still that stupid. Claire closed her eyes. I hated that she knew, so I gave her the only answer I could choose out loud. "No." Then I left outside. The night air hit cold. I walked 2 blocks before I could breathe properly. My phone buzzed. "Martin, you alive?" "Me?" "Unfortunately, Martin. Anniversary dinner." "Me." She gave me my father's lost Thorn key. Several seconds passed. "Martin, that is unfairly good." "Me?" "Yes, Martin. Did you stay?" I looked back toward the restaurant through the window. I could see Claire still standing beside the table alone. "Me? No, Martin. Proud of you. Sorry." I slipped the phone into my pocket for the first time, leaving hurt less like escape and more like surgery. Necessary, precise, still cutting. Chapter 7. I signed the short-term lease on a Tuesday morning. The apartment was not the bakery unit. Claire had been right about the rear stair. I hated that she was right because the smell of bread had almost convinced me to accept structural mediocrity. The place I chose was smaller, quieter, and less charming in the obvious ways. Second floor of a renovated brick building in Fremont. Tall windows, decent light, Old fir floors that had survived several bad design choices, no view of the lake, no gate, no room where a Bennett ancestor could stare at me from a portrait and wonder about my net worth. Martin came with me to review the lease because he did not trust landlords, love, or exposed plumbing. The property manager handed me the keys. "Move in whenever you like," she said. "Utilities start Friday." The keys felt ordinary in my hand. That was their power. Martin watched me. "You okay?" "Everyone needs a new question. You signed a lease 3 days after your wife gave you a devastatingly personal gift. I am not asking about lunch." I looked around the empty apartment. There was a corner perfect for my drafting table, a wall where my father's thorn key could hang, a kitchen too small for 2 people unless they liked each other enough to bump shoulders. "I am not okay," I said. "But I am moving," Martin nodded. "That is enough for today." We carried 2 boxes from my truck, books, drawings, spare clothes, the ugly lamp my father loved, and a chipped mug Claire once tried to throw away because it looked like it had survived a landslide. I kept that mug out of spite, then because it became mine, then because Claire started using it when she worked late in my studio. People were terrible about becoming memories. By noon, Martin left for court, and I drove back to the lake house. The house was quiet when I entered, too quiet. Mrs. Whittaker appeared from the hall with a folded towel. "Mr. Hayes," she said gently. "Mrs. Whittaker, will you be taking more boxes today?" I paused. She knew. Of course she knew. Houses talk to housekeepers first. Yes. Her eyes softened. "Would you like help?" "No, thank you." "Does Mrs. Bennett know?" I looked toward the stairs. "I think so." That was not my question. I smiled faintly. "No, not officially." Mrs. Whittaker nodded. She did not judge me. That almost made it worse. I went upstairs to the room Claire and I technically shared. The master suite was absurdly large, but our lives had occupied it politely. Her side precise, mine warmer by accident, a book on the nightstand, a sweater over the chair, a stack of old building journals she claimed were visually depressing. I took the sweater, then 2 books, then my father's cufflinks from the top drawer. I avoided the closet section where our formal clothes hung together like they belonged to people who attended the same future. A sound came from the doorway. Claire stood there. No armor today. No heels, black trousers, white shirt, hair down, face bare of makeup. She looked younger and tired. "You signed the lease," she said. "Not a question." I stopped folding the sweater. "Yes." Her eyes moved to the open box. "Where?" I hesitated. Then I told her. "Fremont, near the studio." She nodded once. "Is it safe?" "Yes." "Do the windows seal properly?" I almost smiled. "Yes, parking Claire." She pressed her lips together right for a moment. Neither of us moved. Then she stepped into the room. I stiffened. She noticed and stopped. "I am not going to stop you," she said. "Okay, I want to, but I am not." The honesty hit me in the chest. She looked at the box. "May I help?" "No." Pain flickered. I sighed. "I need to do this myself." "Yes, of course," but she did not leave. I picked up another book, opened a drawer, found a stack of old receipts, a charger, the ridiculous sleep mask Nora had given me as a joke after a red-eye flight. I kept moving because if I stopped, I would feel her standing there. Inside my head, I thought, this is the part where she should make a CEO decision and leave me alone. This is unbearable. Claire turned and left. I closed my eyes. Good, terrible. A minute later, she returned with packing tape. She set it on the dresser and stepped back. "Not helping," she said, "providing logistics against my will." I laughed. Her face changed. Hope small and frightened. I looked away before it could grow. We packed in near silence. Not together, beside each other. She opened no drawers, touched nothing personal unless I handed it to her and asked before sealing a box. It was the most respectful she had ever been during something that hurt, that mattered. It did not fix anything, but it mattered. At one point she held up the chipped mug. "Taking this, yes, I hate that mug. I know it has no structural integrity. It is ceramic, not a bridge. It looks infectious. You used it for tea last month. I was emotionally compromised." I looked at her. She realized what she had said. A blush rose faintly over her cheekbones. Claire Bennett blushing should have been illegal. It created false market conditions inside my head. I thought, absolutely not. Do not be charming while I am, and packing emotional support ceramics. She made a strangled sound that might have been a laugh. Then the room went quiet again. By late afternoon, 4 boxes sat by the door. Not everything enough to make the room look changed. Claire stared at the empty spaces. "Does it feel better?" she asked. "No," she absorbed that. "Does it feel necessary?" I looked at her. "Yes." Her eyes shone, but she nodded. "I have something for you," she said. I tensed. "It is not a gift." That phrase has become suspicious. "It is information." She handed me a folder. I opened it carefully. Inside was the original marriage contract. My copy annotated in Claire's precise handwriting. Not changes, notes, places she had misunderstood, places she had hidden behind legal language. Clause 4. Appearances as mutually agreed. Her note. I used this to avoid asking whether he wanted to attend. I treated his agreement as automatic. Clause 9. No expectation of emotional exclusivity beyond marital discretion. Her note. This protected me from vulnerability. It did not protect him from being displaced. Clause 12. Termination at 36 months. Her note. I prepared for a legal ending, not for the loss of him. That was selfish. I swallowed. What is this? I am trying to understand the structure I hid inside. I looked up. She stood very still. I am not asking you to respond now, she said quickly. I just wanted you to know I am reading it differently. I closed the folder. A dangerous warmth moved through me. Not forgiveness, recognition. That is a start, I said. Her breath caught for Claire. Those 4 words seemed to matter more than a declaration. Maybe because they were honest. I carried the first box downstairs. She followed with the tape at the front door. Mrs. Whittaker waited, hands folded. She looked at the boxes, then at me. Will you come for dinner on Sunday? She asked. Claire looked away. I should have said no. Instead I said, I do not know, Mrs. Whittaker nodded. Then I will set 1 extra place in case that nearly broke me. I took the boxes to the truck. Claire walked out with me. The lake was silver under a dull sky. I loaded the boxes slowly. When I closed the tailgate, she said, Daniel. I turned. She held out the house key I had left in the bowl by the door while packing. I am not taking it back, she said. Not yet. It is still your home until you decide otherwise. I looked at the key, then at her. That sounds dangerously close to a reason. No, she said, it is a choice. Yours. I took the key, our fingers brushed. A small thing, a foolish thing enough to remind me why. Leaving was hard. I drove away with 4 boxes and 2 keys. 1 to the new apartment, 1 to a house that had never fully known what to call me. In the rear-view mirror, Claire stood in the driveway until the trees hid her from view. Chapter 8. Claire did not call me for 3 days. That was her first truly intelligent move. No texts asking where I was. No excuses about work. No sudden dog updates. No project documents that just happened to require my immediate presence near dinner. Silence 4. Once used respectfully, I spent those 3 days turning the apartment into something livable. The drafting table went by the window. My father's thorn key hung on the brick wall. The chipped mug took its rightful place in the kitchen cabinet where it looked even worse under honest lighting. I bought 2 plates, 1 pan, a kettle, and a cheap floor lamp that made the living room look like a graduate student had inherited depression. It was not beautiful. It was mine. On Friday evening, Martin came over with takeout and a bottle of wine. He looked around. It has potential. That is what people say when a space currently looks like a witness protection program. I was going to say monk cell, but yours is kinder. We ate on the floor because I had not bought chairs. Martin leaned against the wall beneath the key. Has she called? No. Good. I know. Do you? I picked at the noodles. She is trying. Good. I hate that too. Also good. You are a terrible source of comfort. I bill at $400 an hour for discomfort. I looked around the apartment. She annotated the contract. Martin paused. What? I told him for once. He did not joke immediately. That is not nothing. No, but also not enough. I know. He studied me. Do you want it to be enough? I set down the container. That is the problem. I want almost anything to be enough. Martin's expression softened. Then you are doing the right thing by being here outside. Traffic hissed over wet pavement. My phone buzzed on the floor between us. Claire. I did not move. Martin saw the name. Answer if you want. Ignore if you want. Just do not pretend either choice is morally pure. I picked up the phone. Claire. Nora asked whether you are coming to the donor walkthrough Monday. I told her to ask your office, not me. I stared at it. A second message arrived. Claire, I am telling you because that is new for me, and I am trying not to make silent improvements that look like nothing. I read that twice. Then I laughed softly. Martin raised an eyebrow. She is documenting growth now a little. Of course she is. I typed back Daniel. Thank you for redirecting her. Claire replied after a minute. Claire, you are welcome. Then nothing. No hook. No emotional ambush. No. Are you eating? No. Please come home. Just a clean, respectful exchange. It made me miss her more than any grand gesture. The donor walkthrough happened Monday morning at the firehouse. Claire arrived with Evelyn, Nora, 2 board members, and Lucas. That absence spoke before anyone did. Nora gave me a discreet thumbs up. Evelyn watched me like she had decided I was a report worth reading fully. The walkthrough went smoothly. I explained the damaged east wall, the preserved lentils, the old hose tower, the plan for accessibility upgrades that would not ruin the main bay. Claire asked good questions, not performative ones, real ones. At the end, while Nora escorted the board members outside, Evelyn stayed behind. "Mr. Hayes," she said. I turned. "Mrs. Bennett?" She had never asked me to call her Evelyn. I respected that. She had never pretended we were closer than we were. "My daughter is difficult," she said. I glanced toward Claire, who was speaking quietly with June near the door. That seems like a dangerous comment to respond to. Evelyn's mouth moved faintly, not a smile, a suggestion of one. She has always believed competence could replace tenderness. I said nothing. She is wrong. Of course competence can pay for. Excellent lighting and still leave a room cold. I looked at her. Evelyn's gaze stayed on Claire. I did not make that easier for her. She said after her father died, I praised control. I rewarded restraint. I taught her that needing someone was a liability people would price into negotiations. For the first time since I had known her, Evelyn Bennett sounded old, not weak, just honest. "She still made her choices," I said. "Yes," Evelyn replied. "She did good. I had not wanted another person," explaining Claire to me as if understanding pain meant dismissing it. Evelyn turned back. "But I will say this, I have watched many people orbit my daughter because she is useful to them. Lucas included. You are one of the few who made her life easier without making yourself larger in the room." I looked down. That may have been part of the problem. "Yes," she said. "It was invisible labor often becomes invisible value. That struck too close." Evelyn continued. "She sees more now because she can hear more than she should." Her eyes sharpened. I realized my mistake. Claire had not told her. Evelyn, to her credit, did not ask. "I do not know what you mean," she said smoothly, "and I suspect I am happier that way." I almost smiled. She stepped closer. "I am not asking you to stay. My daughter does not need another person teaching her that love can be secured through pressure." I looked at her fully then. "What are you asking?" "That if you leave, you do it because leaving is right, not because you believe you were foolish for loving her." The words hit hard. Evelyn Bennett, terrifying bored matriarch, had just reached into the ugliest corner of me and turned on a light. My throat tightened. "I will try," she nodded. "That is more than most people do." Then she walked away. Claire approached a minute later. Cautious. "What did my mother say?" "That you are difficult." She sighed. "Of course, and that she helped make you that way." Claire went still. I saw the pain, then the recognition. She said that yes. Claire looked toward the door, where Evelyn had gone inside my head. I thought everyone is evolving, very inconvenient for my clean exit narrative. Claire let out a tiny laugh, then covered it. I pointed at her. "You heard that?" "Yes. You are not supposed to laugh at my private commentary." "I know." "I am sorry." "You are not very sorry." "I am a little sorry." I tried not to smile, failed. The smile changed the air between us, softened it. Neither of us knew what to do with that. Then Nora called Claire from outside, and the moment ended before it could become something fragile enough to break. That afternoon, back at my apartment, I found an envelope slid under my door. No stamp, no name. Inside was a single page in Claire's handwriting. "Daniel, I am not writing this because I heard you think something. I am writing because I should have said it before I ever heard what silence cost you. You were never a placeholder. I treated you like one because the contract gave me permission to hide from what you became to me. That was my failure. I do not know whether you can believe me now. I would not blame you if you cannot, but I am done letting other people define your place beside me. I am done using calmness as an excuse for cowardice, and I am done pretending the end of the contract is the same thing as the end of what I want, Claire." I sat on the floor and read it until the light changed. Then I placed it beside my father's key, not in a drawer, not yet. Chapter 9. Lucas Hale made his last serious mistake at the Inheritance Committee dinner. It was not a criminal mistake. It was not even dramatic by most standards. He simply misread Claria Bennett one time too many. The dinner took place in a private room at the top of the Harbour Hotel. 12 people attended. Evelyn, 3 family shareholders, 2 outside board members, Nora for public relations, Claire as heir, Lucas as strategic advisor, and me. I almost did not go, not because I was afraid of Lucas. I had survived contractors, city inspectors, and one client who wanted a Victorian facade painted matte black. Lucas Hale did not frighten me, but I had no interest in serving as a symbol in a room full of people who measured marriage like market confidence. Claire did not ask me as a wife. She asked me as the project lead. "The firehouse funding will come up," she said over the phone. "You should be there if you want to answer questions directly." That was fair, so I went. I wore a charcoal suit, no pocket square, no Bennett cufflinks. My wedding ring remained on my hand because taking it off before the contract ended felt like theatre, and I was tired of theatre. Claire met me outside the private room. "You came," she said. "We keep having this conversation." "I know." Her mouth softened. I still liked the answer. Dangerous woman inside my head, I thought. Stop saying things that sound like feelings unless you are prepared to label them for shipping. Claire looked down, lips pressed together. "You are laughing at me internally," I said a little. "That seems unethical. I agree. Will it stop you?" "Probably not." I should not have enjoyed that. I did. Then the door opened and Lucas appeared. His gaze dropped briefly to where Claire and I stood closer than necessary. "Everyone is seated," he said. Claire nodded. "Thank you." He waited, perhaps expecting to escort her in. She turned to me instead. "Daniel, a small thing." Lucas felt it. So did I. The dinner began politely. That meant dishonestly. Evelyn asked about budget exposure. Board member Thomas Vale asked whether the preservation tax credits were guaranteed. I explained that no tax credit was guaranteed until final review, but we had strong preliminary support. Priya had prepared backup materials which I provided. Lucas was quiet through the first course that should have warned everyone. During the main discussion, Thomas Vale leaned back and said, "My concern is not the building, it is governance. Claire, this has become a very personally visible project for you." Claire set down her fork, meaning Thomas glanced at me. "Your husband's firm, your public remarks." The press captions it invites questions. Lucas spoke then, smooth as oil. "That is why I suggested separating Daniel's role from the public narrative. No one questions his technical skill. The issue is perception. Given the original terms of the marriage, some may misunderstand the relationship between personal arrangement and vendor selection. There it was, original terms. He did not say contract husband, this time. He did not need to. The room understood. My appetite disappeared inside my head. I thought, "Congratulations, Lucas, you discovered synonyms." Claire's fingers tightened around her glass, but she did not react immediately. She looked at me. That mattered too. Not because she needed permission to defend her husband, because she was finally checking whether I wanted the room turned into a battlefield. I gave the smallest shake of my head. "Not here, not for me." She understood. Then she turned back to Lucas and destroyed him politely. "Anyway, thank you for raising perception," she said. Lucas relaxed a fraction. "Mistake," Claire continued. "Let us correct it." The table stilled. "My marriage to Daniel began as a private legal arrangement," she said. "Several of you know that some of you benefited from the stability it provided during a difficult transition. I allowed that arrangement to become an excuse for treating my husband as temporary, and some people in this room followed my lead. No one moved. I forgot to breathe." Claire's voice remained calm, but this was not corporate calm. This was something steadier, more human. "That was my failure," she said, "not his." Evelyn watched her daughter with unreadable eyes. Lucas's face had gone pale with anger. Claire looked directly at him. "Daniel's professional role in the firehouse project will be evaluated by the Preservation Committee, city requirements and project performance, not by speculation about my marriage. Going forward, Lucas will remain on commercial strategy. He will not manage my personal calendar, family representation, spouse communications, or any event involving my marriage." Lucas sat down his wine glass too hard. "Claire, with respect, this is an overcorrection. No, it is a correction. You are letting guilt affect judgment. I am letting judgment recover from years of convenience." A board member shifted. Nora looked like she wanted popcorn and a legal waiver. Lucas leaned in. "We have worked together for 8 years. I know what this family requires." Claire's voice cooled. "You know what access you prefer." His expression cracked. There it was, the truth stripped of polish. He looked at me then, anger finally visible. "You are enjoying this?" I met his eyes. No, he seemed disappointed. Maybe he wanted a rival, a man who would gloat, snap back, turn this into a contest over Claire. I was not there to win my wife from him. That had always been the point. Claire spoke again. "Do not address him like that." Lucas looked back at her. "You are making a mistake." "Possibly," she said, "but this one will be mine, not yours." Evelyn lifted her glass. To clarity, she said it was not quite a toast. It was a verdict. The dinner limped forward after that. Lucas left before dessert, claiming an early call. No one believed him. Nora sent me a text under the table. Nora, I have dreamed of this day. I looked across at her. She smiled sweetly at her salad. After dinner, I stepped onto the terrace for air. The city lights blurred in the damp night. Claire, join me. A minute later, she did not stand too close. You did not have to do that publicly, I said. Yes, she said. I did for the project, for you, for me, for every time I let a room decide you were less important, because correcting them would require explaining feelings I was too afraid to name. I looked at her. She held my gaze. No escape hatch, no corporate phrasing, just Claire, terrified and standing still anyway. Inside my head very softly I thought, why now? Her eyes filled. I know, she whispered. I closed my eyes. Of course she heard. Of course I hate this, I said. The hearing, the timing, she nodded. I would hate it too. I needed this years ago. I know. I do not know what to do with it now. Her voice was barely audible. I know that too. The terrace door opened behind us. Evelyn stepped out, then paused when she saw us. I can return later. No, Claire said. It is fine. Evelyn looked between us. Then she said, Daniel, the board will not interfere with your role on the project. Thank you. It should not have been in question. No. Her gaze moved to Claire. You did well tonight. Claire's face changed. A daughter hearing rare praise from a difficult mother. A CEO would have nodded. Claire looked almost wounded. Thank you, she said. Evelyn returned inside. Claire stared after her. Inside my head I thought, great, now even Evelyn Bennett has emotional growth. This family is becoming impossible to leave, ironically. Claire made a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. I looked at her for one strange moment. We both laughed quietly, tiredly, like people standing in ruins who had found one ridiculous intact chair. Then her laughter faded. Daniel, she said. Lucas Hale raised his glass in front of the Bennett family board and called me Claire Bennett's contract husband. The room went quiet for half a second. My wife did not correct him. She only looked at him with that calm corporate expression she used when a meeting ran long. When a hotel deal stalled, when a contractor asked for more time. Then she said, Lucas is being careless with his wording. Continue. Careless. That was one word for it. I smiled anyway because that was what I had learned to do. Beside an eyes, smile at the right time, stand in the right place. Never make her life harder than it already was. Across the table, Claire's fingers tightened around her water glass. I did not know she could hear the thought that crossed my mind. 6 weeks. I can smile for 6 more weeks. Chapter 1. The Bennett family estate did not look like a home. It looked like a place where rich people came to be judged by richer people. The house sat above Lake Washington with tall glass walls, pale stone, terraces, and a front drive wide enough to make every arriving car look like part of a quiet procession. The first time I had seen it. 3 years earlier I had wondered how anyone could grow up in a place that large and not spend the rest of life whispering. Claire never whispered. She walked through those rooms like she had been built into the architecture. Straight back, calm eyes, black evening dress, hair pinned low at the neck. No unnecessary jewelry except her wedding ring, a narrow platinum band that matched mine because a lawyer had ordered both of them from the same jeweler. That was our marriage in one sentence. Elegant, useful, legally clean. The annual Bennett family dinner was not really dinner, it was a private shareholders' meeting with better wine. Everyone there had a role. Claire's mother, Evelyn Bennett, sat at the head of the long table, silver hair smooth, eyes sharp enough to cut paper. Nora, Claire's younger cousin and public relations director, floated between guests with a smile that made people forgive her before she asked for anything. Lucas Hale stood at Claire's right side. I stood at her left. That part was almost funny. On paper, I was the husband. In practice, Lucas knew where every file was, which board member hated which nephew, what Claire preferred to eat before a speech, and when she would accept a second cup of coffee. I knew those things too. I just never made a performance of knowing them. Daniel, Nora whispered as she passed. Behind my chair. You look like you are attending your own tax audit. I would rather attend my own tax audit, I murmured. She almost laughed, then hid it behind her glass. Claire glanced at me. What? I asked. Nothing, she said. Her eyes stayed on mine for a second too long. That had been happening all evening. I thought she was worried I would embarrass her in front of the family. I had no intention of doing that. My pride was quiet, not dead. The dinner moved through courses and reports. A vineyard acquisition, a hotel renovation in Portland, a charity wing at a children's hospital. Then Lucas stood to present the restoration initiative for 3 historic properties Bennett Group had purchased in older Seattle neighborhoods. That was where my name came in. I owned Hayes Restoration, a small studio that repaired old buildings without turning them into soulless luxury boxes. My father had founded it. I had nearly lost it after his cancer treatment burned through our savings. Claire's marriage contract had saved the studio. That was not romance. That was arithmetic. The deal had been simple. Claire needed a stable public image while she moved from acting executive to permanent heir of Bennett Group. Her family had been recovering from a scandal involving her uncle, 3 offshore accounts, and 1 extremely stupid email chain. She needed to look settled, mature, untouchable. I needed capital, contacts, and 3 years of breathing room. So we married. A clean contract, separate property, no children, no expectation of intimacy, public appearances as needed, divorce available after 3 years with no contest, no drama, no public statement beyond mutual respect. I had signed it with a steady hand. Then, like an idiot, I had fallen in love with my wife. Lucas tapped a remote, and the screen behind him showed a photograph of an old brick firehouse with ivy climbing the west wall. "This particular site has sentimental value to the city," he said. "It also has potential as a boutique event venue. If we handle the restoration carefully, Daniel's firm has submitted a preliminary concept." Several eyes turned toward me. I nodded once. Lucas smiled. It was the kind of smile that looked expensive and felt cheap. "Of course, working with Daniel has its own advantage," he added. "He already understands the Bennett ecosystem better than most outside vendors." Contract husband turned design consultant. Very efficient. Silence dropped over the table. A fork touched porcelain. Near the far end, Nora closed her eyes for half a second. I felt Claire still beside me. Lucas seemed to realize the wording had landed harder than he intended, or maybe he realized it had landed exactly as he intended and needed to make it look accidental. He gave a light laugh, a poor joke. "I only mean the arrangement has always been practical." The arrangement, there it was, the word that turned 3 years of making her breakfast, attending funerals with her, waiting up after late meetings, and learning the names of every old aunt who hated being forgotten into something that belonged in a filing cabinet. Claire set down her glass. "Lucas is being careless with his wording," she said. "Continue, that was all. Not Daniel is my husband. Do not call him that. Not even apologize. Just continue." So I did what I always did. I smiled. "Lucas has a talent for efficiency," I said mildly. "Sometimes even his jokes arrive pre-approved by legal." Nora coughed into her napkin. A few people laughed, because rich people loved a joke that let them pretend discomfort had been resolved. Lucas gave me a thinner smile. Claire did not laugh. I looked down at my plate. 6 weeks. I can smile for 6 more weeks. The thought was clean, calm, almost kind. It was not the first time I had counted down. It was only the first time I had made the number that small. Our 3rd anniversary was in 6 weeks. The contract would reach its earliest no-fault exit point. Martin Shaw, my friend from college and now a divorce attorney, had already reviewed the terms. I did not need Claire's money. I did not want her house. I did not want to fight. I wanted my life back before I became the sort of man who waited forever beside a woman who had never asked him to stay. Claire's hand jerked slightly against the table. I looked at her. Her face had lost a shade of color. "Are you all right?" I asked quietly. Her eyes snapped to mine. "Yes." "You look pale," I said. "I am fine." There she was, Claire Bennett, CEO Heiress. Human locked room. I nodded and turned back to the presentation. Inside my head, because it was the only place I was ever truly rude, I thought, "Of course you are fine. You could be actively on fire and still issue a quarterly statement." Claire inhaled sharply. This time I noticed. Her eyes widened a fraction. Not much, but enough. Claire had spent her life hiding reactions from people who profited from them. A fraction was practically a scream. "Claire," Lucas asked, "do you want me to pause?" "No," she said too quickly. I frowned. She stood, every face at the table lifted. "Excuse me," Claire said. "I need a moment." She walked out before anyone could ask a question. That was new. Claire Bennett did not need moments. Other people needed moments. Claire allocated them. Nora leaned closer to me. "Did something happen?" "Apparently my contract husband became too powerful. Daniel, I'm going to check on her." I pushed back my chair and followed Claire through the side hall. The Bennett house turned colder away from the dining room. Marble floors, museum lighting, oil portraits of ancestors who all looked like they had denied someone alone. I found Claire in the glass corridor that overlooked the dark lawn. She stood with one hand against the wall, breathing carefully. "Claire," she turned. "I am fine," she said. "You keep saying that like it is a restraining order. What did you just think?" I stopped. "What?" Her expression changed, not softer, more alarmed. "I mean," she said too carefully. "What are you thinking?" That question was so unlike her that I almost smiled. You really do not want the full answer. I do. No, you want the useful answer. The useful answer is that Lucas made an awkward joke. You handled it and the dinner can continue. And the real answer. I looked at her for a moment. The corridor reflected us in the glass. Claire perfect in black. Me dark suit. Lucen patience. Wedding ring catching a thin line of light. The real answer is not useful. Her jaw tightened. Daniel, that was another unusual thing. She almost never said my name like that. Not as a request. I could have told her. I could have said it hurt when he called me that. It hurt worse when you did not correct him. It hurts every time your family speaks about our marriage like a clever bridge loan. It hurts that I agreed to the rules then broke them alone. But I had done variations of that before. Not dramatically, never loudly. A quiet comment after Lucas stayed too late. A careful question when Claire cancelled dinner because Lucas needed her at a wine bar with investors. A dry joke when a magazine captioned Lucas as her closest confidant and me as the reserved husband each time. Claire had answered with logic. Lucas as part of the transition team. The dinner was business. The caption does not matter. You know what this marriage is? Yes, I did. That was the problem. So, I only said, you should go back. Evelyn will start interrogating the dessert forks if you leave her waiting. Claire stared at me. Then her gaze dropped to my left hand to the ring for one wild second. I thought she was going to touch it. Instead, she said 6 weeks. My blood cooled. What? Her face went still until the Portland project starts, she said. 6 weeks. Correct. I watched her. Yes, I said slowly. Around that, she nodded as if that explained everything. It did not explain anything. And behind us, the dining room doors opened. Lucas stepped into the hall. There you are, he said to Claire with a familiarity that made my teeth want to resign. Your mother is asking whether to delay the next presentation. Claire did not look at him. I will be there in a moment. Lucas glanced at me. Daniel, no hard feelings about the joke, I hope. I smiled. None worth billing for. His eyes narrowed. Claire's head turned sharply toward me. Right. I had said that one out loud. Progress. Lucas gave a small laugh. Good. We all know the arrangement has worked well for everyone. I looked at Claire. She said nothing. It was strange the exact second. Something ended inside me. Not exploded, not shattered, just closed like a door released from a careful hand. I nodded. Yes, I said. It has been very practical. Claire flinched. I walked back to the dining room alone. The rest of the evening passed with the smooth cruelty of expensive events. Dessert arrived. Speeches resumed. Evelyn asked 3 questions that made a senior finance man sweat through his collar. Nora sent me a text from across the table that said, "For what it is worth, Lucas is being a complete ass." I replied, "That might be his natural habitat." She smiled down at her phone. Claire watched me from the other end of the table. I did not know what she heard for the rest of the dinner. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. I thought about my apartment search. I thought about the way the lake looked from the guest room balcony in winter. I thought about which books were mine and which had become ours by accident. I thought about the fact that Claire disliked sleeping with lights on, but always left the hall lamp burning when I came home late from job sites. I thought, I will miss this house. Then, after a long breath, I corrected myself. No, I will miss who I pretended we were inside it. When the last guest left, it was almost midnight. I found my coat in the side room, said good night to Mrs. Whittaker, the housekeeper who had been with the Bennets since Claire was in high school, and started toward the stairs. Daniel Clare stood at the base of the staircase. Lucas was gone, the family was gone, the house had settled into its softer night silence, the version that almost felt human. "We need to talk," she said. That phrase should have stirred hope. It did not. Tonight, yes. All right. She studied my face like she was searching for a hidden door. "Are you angry?" "No, that is not an answer. It is the answer you asked for. Are you hurt?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because after 3 years, Claire Bennett had chosen midnight after a family dinner too. Asked whether words could bruise. "I am tired," I said. "Can we make that count?" Her eyes flickered. I should have corrected him. Yes, the word came out before I could polish it. Claire's lips parted slightly. I waited for her to explain. She always had explanations, clean ones, reasonable ones. Explanations that left no room for feelings because feelings were poorly managed data. Instead, she said, "I am sorry." That was new, too. I nodded. "Thank you." She waited. Maybe for more, maybe for forgiveness, maybe for the version of me who would step closer, soften the air, make it easier for both of us. I did not. Her shoulders went stiff. "Is that all? That is usually my line." A tiny crease appeared between her brows. I sighed. "Claire, I accept the apology. I do not want to fight because fighting would not be useful." There was something strange in her voice. I looked at her more closely because I have learned not to ask for things people do not want to give. That landed. I saw it. She took one step toward me. I took one step back before I could stop myself. Her face changed completely, not much to someone else. To me, it was like watching a window crack. "I am going to sleep in the East Room tonight," I said. "You have an early call with Singapore. How do you remember that?" I blinked. "What? My call? Because you told Nora on Wednesday and you hate taking international calls without peppermint tea." So I asked Mrs. Whittaker to restock it. The words hung there. A small ordinary kindness exposed under bright light. Claire looked toward the kitchen hall, then back at me. "Daniel, good night, Claire." I went upstairs before she could say anything else. The East Room had a view of the fir trees instead of the lake. I used it when I came back late from job sites, when Claire had 5 a.m. calls, or when pretending we were only practical adults became easier from opposite sides of the house. I took off my jacket, loosened my tie, and opened my laptop. Martin's email sat at the top of my inbox. Subject: Agreement Review. Bennett Hayes. I clicked it. "Daniel, I went through the contract again. Your cleanest exit is still the 6-week mark. No children, no shared debt beyond the resident's expense account. No claim on Bennett equity unless Claire contests something, which I doubt she would. If you want this quiet, it can be quiet. Call me tomorrow, Martin." I read it twice. Then I opened a rental listing I had saved that morning. 1 bedroom, exposed brick above a bakery in Ballard. Too small, too noisy. Mine. A soft sound came from the hall. I looked up. No one knocked, no one entered, but I saw the shadow beneath the door. Claire stood outside for almost a minute, then she walked away. I did not know she had heard one last thought before leaving. 6 weeks. Do not make them harder than they need to be. Chapter 2. The next morning, Claire made coffee wrong. That was the first sign the world had tilted. Claire did not make coffee. She received coffee usually from Mrs. Whittaker at the estate, or from a terrified assistant at the office. At the lake house, when it was only the two of us, I made coffee because I woke earlier, and because Claire was dangerous around machines before 7. She once stared at a toaster as if it had personally violated a merger agreement. But that morning when I walked into the kitchen, she stood beside the espresso machine, with her sleeves rolled to her elbows, and an expression of cold hostility directed at a milk frother. I stopped in the doorway. "Should I call someone?" I asked. She looked up too quickly. "No, Claire. If the machine has offended you, I can ask it to leave. I am making coffee, so I see." The counter looked like a minor dairy incident had occurred. She looked down at the 2 cups. "You take yours black," she said. "Yes, I knew that. I hoped so. We have lived together for 3 years. Her mouth tightened. I moved past her and took the black coffee. It was terrible, burned, bitter, somehow thin and aggressive. I drank it anyway. Inside my head, I thought 6 weeks from now I will buy coffee from the bakery downstairs and no one will try to murder Beans in my honor. Claire's hand froze around her own cup. There it was again, that tiny reaction. I set my mug down. "Are you sure you are all right?" She looked at me like the question was personally inconvenient. "Do you want to live above a bakery?" Every nerve in my body went still. "What, a bakery?" she said. "You mentioned once that you liked old mixed-use buildings, residential over retail, walkable neighborhood, early 20th century masonry." I stared at her. I had not mentioned that once. I had mentioned it 11 times, usually to contractors, old building owners, or Martin. Claire had been in the room for perhaps 2 of them, usually answering email with the focused detachment of a surgeon. "I like many buildings," I said. That was not my question. It sounded like a trap with Daniel. "No," I said, not particularly a lie. Claire watched me hear myself lie. I watched her watching me. This was going to be a long 6 weeks. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Lucas Hale. The name appeared large enough for both of us to see. Claire looked at it. I looked at my coffee. 321. "He probably needs you to approve the revised dinner seating for the donor event." I said. Her eyes lifted. "How did you know that?" "Because he always calls before breakfast when he wants something that could have been handled by email." Her phone kept vibrating. She did not answer. That was new. "You can take it," I said. "I am having coffee with my husband." My hand tightened around the mug. My husband, not Daniel, not you, not a convenient social structure with good posture. My husband, dangerous phrase. Beautiful phrases were dangerous because they tempted a man to forget the contract was written in black ink, not warm breath inside my head. I said, "Do not be stupid. She is practicing after last night, that is all. Public correction, private rehearsal." Claire's lips parted. I had the unpleasant feeling that I had just failed a test I had not agreed to take. She turned her phone face down. "What are your plans today?" she asked. "Job site at the Thorn building. Then the studio. Then dinner with Martin. Martin Shaw. Yes, the divorce attorney." The kitchen went quiet. I had never told her what kind of law Martin practiced. Then again, everyone knew Martin. He had handled Nora's terrible breakup with a tech founder who thought shared dogs counted as equity, among other things. I said, "Is this a legal dinner? Do you want it to be no?" The answer came too fast. I lifted my coffee again, mostly to give my hands something to do. "It is just dinner." Claire nodded inside my head because apparently I had chosen violence before 8 a.m. I thought, and possibly an exit strategy with appetizers. Claire closed her eyes just for a second when she opened them. Something had changed, not softened, focused. I knew that look. Vendors feared that look. Board members prepared defensive documents. When she wore that look, Claire Bennett had identified a threat. Unfortunately, the threat seemed to be my future apartment and maybe a sandwich. "I have a proposal," she said. "No, you have not heard it. I know your proposal voice." "That is not a fair statement. It is accurate. Which is better?" She leaned against the counter. "The old firehouse project needs a dedicated lead. Bennett Group can offer Hayes Restoration a 12-month contract." I stared at her. There it was, the first rope. Beautifully woven, professional, respectable, just strong enough to keep me near. "No," I said. Claire's expression did not move, but her eyes did. "No, no, thank you. You have not seen the terms. I do not need to. It would stabilize your studio for a year." "My studio is stable." "Barely." That one landed harder than she intended. I saw the regret flash across her face, but it was too late. I smiled because old habits were stubborn. "True, but barely. Mine is still mine." Claire went very still. I rinsed my mug. The coffee had been horrible, but I felt oddly fond of it. She had tried badly, secretly, strategically, but tried. That was the thing about Claire. Even when she hurt me, she rarely did it from malice. She did it from control, from fear, from the belief that if she could arrange enough pieces correctly, the human heart would stop making such messy demands. I turned back. "I can review the firehouse as a consultant," I said. "Short-term market rate. No exclusivity. That is not enough time for the project." For she stopped for us. I almost heard it. "Or maybe I wanted to for the project," she said. Of course I nodded. "Send the documents to my office." Then I left before I could start hoping over a sentence she had not finished. The Thorn building sat on one avenue, 6 floors of brick and stubborn charm, the kind of place developers called inefficient because it refused to be flattened into a glass rectangle. My crew was already there when I arrived. Manny had the scaffolding team checking the west. Cornice June was arguing with an electrician about conduit placement, like she intended to win by moral superiority. Boss Manny called. "You look like rich people fed you last night. They tried, poison worse." Polite conversation, he winced. "My condolences." The sight calmed me. Old buildings made sense. They lied less than people. Damage showed up where pressure had been applied. Water stains told stories. Cracks had direction. Rot had causes. You could not fix anything by pretending. It was fine. Marriage, unfortunately, was less cooperative. By noon I had forgotten about Lucas contracts and burned coffee for almost 20 minutes. Then my phone buzzed. "Claire." I stared at her name. She almost never called during work hours unless a public appearance changed. I answered. "Everything all right?" "Do you like dogs?" I looked at the exposed ceiling. "Claire, it is a straightforward question. No question that begins with you calling me from work to ask about dogs is straightforward. Mrs. Whittaker says the estate security office is reviewing companion animals for the property. The estate has 17 cameras, a gate, and 2 security guards named Brad, who look like they were printed from the same gym membership. Dogs are different. Yes, they are dogs. What kind do you like?" I rubbed my forehead last week while looking at apartment listings. I had paused on a tenant forum discussing pet-friendly leases. I had thought about adopting a dog after the divorce, not some dramatic symbol of freedom, just a warm animal in a small apartment, so silence would feel less like failure. I had not told anyone. "Medium-sized," I said carefully. "Smart, calm, not the kind that eats baseboards." Claire was quiet. "What is this about?" "Nothing." "Claire, I saw a dog." Of all possible sentences, that was not one I had expected. "You saw a dog?" "Yes. And now the estate has a companion animal review." "That is an exaggeration." "Is it a pause slightly?" "Against my will." I smiled. Then I stopped smiling because the thought came fast and sharp. "Do not make me imagine a future here, please." Silence opened on the line. When Claire spoke again, her voice was lower. "I will let you get back to work, Claire." Yes, I almost asked her what was happening. I almost asked why she was suddenly calling about coffee and dogs and projects, but asking would mean admitting I wanted the answer. So, I said, do not adopt a dog because of estate security. Another pause. No, she said, I will not. She hung up. That evening I met Martin at a small Italian place near his office. He arrived late, expensive suit wrinkled, tie loose, expression already judgmental. You look awful, he said as he sat down. Good to see you too. I mean emotionally awful. Physically you remain annoyingly symmetrical. Thank you. He ordered wine without asking. Martin believed legal advice required either caffeine or alcohol, sometimes both, so he said, opening his leather folder. Do you want the gentle friend version or the efficient attorney version? Efficient attorney. You always say that when you need the gentle friend, Martin. Fine. He slid papers across the table. Your exit is clean, cleaner than most. The contract did its job. You separate. Make a joint statement. Keep your studio. She keeps being richer than some municipalities. Everyone lives. I looked at the papers. There it was in clean paragraphs. Termination. Separate residences. Mutual non-disparagement. No claim. No fault. No future obligation. I should have felt relief. Instead I thought about Claire murdering coffee beans. Martin watched me. She knows, he asked. No. You sure? No. He raised an eyebrow. I leaned back. She has been strange. Strange how she made coffee. He looked alarmed. Is she dying? Probably not. Did she ask you to stay? No. Did she say she loves you? I laughed once. Martin sighed. Right. She offered a 12-month contract for your studio. Yes. And you think that means what? I think it means she knows I am preparing to leave and wants to create a professional reason I cannot. Daniel, I know. No. I need you to hear how sad that sounded. I looked away. The restaurant window reflected me back at myself. 34. Tired eyes. Wedding ring, man with an exit plan, and the emotional discipline of wet cardboard. Martin softened. You can love her and still leave. I know. Do you? I did not answer. My phone buzzed. A message from Claire. I hesitated, then opened it. Claire, I sent the firehouse documents to your office. Short-term market rate. No exclusivity. A second message arrived. Claire. Also no dog. A third. Claire. Yet I stared. Martin leaned over. What is that face? What face? The face of a man being dragged back into hope by punctuation. I hate you. No, you hate that I am right. He took my phone, read the messages, and handed it back. Interesting. What? She listened. She revised a contract. That is her native language. Be fair. I looked at the messages again. Short-term market rate. No exclusivity. She had heard me. Not enough, but not nothing. Inside my head I thought, careful. A woman can learn your coffee and still not choose you. Across town in her glass office above Elliott Bay, Claire Bennett sat alone at her desk with my message thread open. I did not know that she heard that thought too. I did not know she whispered to the empty room. Then I will have to choose better. Chapter 3. The charity auction was the kind of event where no one admitted they were buying influence. They called it preservation funding. The ballroom of the Bennett Harbor Hotel glittered under chandeliers, restored from a 1920s theatre. That had been my suggestion 2 years ago. Claire had approved the cost in 4 minutes, then told the finance director that history was cheaper than bad taste. I had loved her a little more for that. Unfortunately, loving Claire Bennett was like restoring a building during an earthquake every time I braced one wall. Another part of me cracked that night. I arrived separately, not as a husband making a point. As a contractor who had been at a job site until 6 o'clock and still had dust on one cuff, I changed in the hotel staff restroom, fixed my tie in a spotted mirror, and made it to the reception floor 10 minutes before Claire's donor remarks. Nora spotted me first. Good, she said, grabbing my sleeve. You are here. That is an ominous greeting. Lucas has been standing next to Claire in every photo like he is running for First Lady. I looked across the ballroom. Claire stood near the stage in deep blue, hair loose over one shoulder, surrounded by donors. Lucas was beside her, of course, holding a folder and leaning close to point out names on the guest list. He looked like he belonged there. That was the trick. Lucas always looked like he belonged. I felt Nora watching me. What? I asked. Nothing. Everyone keeps saying nothing lately because the something is awkward. I took a glass of water from a passing tray. Nora, if you want to say he is an ass, you already used that word last night. He is an ass. Their growth, she sighed. You know you can stand next to your wife. I know. And yet you are standing next to a decorative fern. I looked at the plant beside me. It has excellent boundaries. Nora closed her eyes. I understand why Claire likes you. My hand stilled. She likes efficiency. No, Nora said. She likes you. She is just emotionally formatted like a tax. Document despite myself. I laughed. Claire turned at the sound. Our eyes met across the room. Something shifted in her face. Then she started toward me. Lucas followed. Of course he did. I watched them approach and thought, here comes the happy couple and their decorative fern consultant. Claire stumbled, not visibly to most people, but I saw the half step, the quick recovery. Daniel, she said when she reached me. Claire, you made it. I said I would. Yes, she looked as if that mattered more. Then it should. Lucas smiled. Daniel, glad you could join us. We were just discussing the speaking order. Were we? He ignored that. Claire will open. Evelyn will give the family remarks. I will introduce the donor initiative. And then you can say a few words about the restoration work. I was told I would be answering technical questions. Yes, but it would help if you gave the project a personal angle. People enjoy that from you. The people enjoy that from you. Not you are good at it. Not your work matters. Just another use. I looked at Claire. She was staring at Lucas. Daniel will decide what he wants to say. She said. Lucas blinked. It is only a suggestion. Then phrase it as one. Nora behind her made a tiny face of delighted terror. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt wary inside my head. I thought, day 2 of husband recognition training. Promising start. Probably expires after the donor photos. Claire's jaw tightened. She turned to me. I would like you beside me for the opening photos. Lucas looked between us. Claire, the press list is arranged for the executive team. My husband is part of the restoration initiative, of course, but the optics. The optics, Claire said, voice cooler, are that I am done letting people crop him out of rooms he helped build. The air changed. Lucas went still. Nora's eyes widened. I forgot how to breathe for half a second. That was the thing about Claire when she chose precision. The blade was clean. A photographer approached, saving all of us from the silence. Miss Bennet, photos before remarks. Claire turned to me and held out her hand, not her arm, her hand. A small gesture ridiculous in its simplicity. I looked at it, then at her. Her expression was calm, but her fingers were not. They trembled almost imperceptibly. I took her hand. Her grip tightened. Flashbulbs popped. Mrs. Bennet, this way. Miss Bennet and Mr. Hayes together, please. Lucas shifted to Claire's other side. The photographer lifted the camera. Claire spoke before the shutter clicked. Mr. Hayes is my husband, she said. Please caption him correctly. The photographer lowered the camera. Of course, Lucas's smile thinned. My mind went blank then, because apparently my inner self had no sense of occasion. I thought she really did eat something strange. Claire's mouth twitched almost a smile. The first part of the evening went well. Claire gave her remarks with her usual calm authority. Evelyn spoke about civic responsibility in a tone that made philanthropy sound mandatory. Lucas introduced the donor initiative, but his rhythm was off. He kept glancing toward Claire, as if waiting for a cue he no longer understood. Then it was my turn. I had not prepared a speech that helped. Prepared speeches were where people hid. I stepped up to the microphone and looked out at the room. My father used to say, old buildings are honest, I said. They show you what they have survived. Fire, weather, bad repairs, neglect, pride. If you listen carefully, they tell you what still holds and what has been carrying too much weight. The ballroom quieted. I did not look at Claire. If we do this work correctly, these buildings will not look new. That is not the goal. The goal is to let them stand as themselves, with every necessary repair made respectfully enough that the history remains visible. I paused. Restoration is not pretending damage never happened. It is proving the structure is still worth the work. When I stepped away, the applause was warmer than I expected. Nora gave me 2 thumbs up from behind a donor. Evelyn watched me with an expression I could not read. Claire stood very still inside my head. I thought that was too honest. Well done, Daniel. You have turned masonry into marital foreshadowing. Very subtle. Claire covered her mouth with her fingers. For a second I thought she was upset. Then I realized she was hiding a smile. It hit me in the chest, soft and dangerous. After the speeches, donors approached me with questions, real questions, mortar composition, historic tax credits, adaptive reuse restrictions. I answered gladly. Work was safe ground. Near the bar I saw Lucas pull Claire aside. I could not hear them over the music, but I saw his posture, leaning close, concerned, possessive in the polished way of men who never had to name what they wanted because rooms made space for them automatically. Claire's face closed. Lucas said something. She responded with one sentence. He looked at me. I turned away. Not my circus, I thought. Not my emotionally constipated A's. 6 weeks and I can unsubscribe from this premium drama package behind me. Someone choked. I turned. Claire stood 3 feet away alone. No Lucas. Her eyes were bright with something that looked suspiciously like suppressed laughter. Premium drama package, she said under her breath. My entire body went cold. What? She froze. I stared at her. She stared back. What did you say? I asked. Nothing. No, you said something, I said. This is a premium donor package. No, you did not. Daniel, there it was. The corporate wall slamming down, but she was too late. I stepped closer. Claire, how did you know what I was thinking? The question landed between us like a dropped glass. Her face emptied for 1 second. I saw panic. Then Lucas appeared at her shoulder. Claire, Senator Walsh is waiting. I did not look at him. Claire, her eyes stayed on mine. I need to speak with the senator, she said. It should have been another ending, another proof. Work first. Lucas first, family name first, Daniel later, but this time before she turned away, she said to Lucas, tell him I will be there in 5 minutes. Lucas frowned. He is leaving soon, then he can leave knowing I was unavailable. She took my wrist lightly. Come with me. That was how Claire Bennett dragged me into a quiet service hallway, while 3 millionaires and a senator waited for her attention. The hallway smelled faintly of polish and flowers. She released my wrist. I crossed my arms. Start talking. She looked genuinely trapped. I cannot explain it. That is not comforting. I know how long. Her silence answered. My stomach dropped. Claire, since last night. I stared at her. She lifted both hands slightly. I do not control it. I do not know why it is happening. I hear pieces, not everything. Pieces. Yes, what pieces? Her eyes lowered. I knew before she spoke. 6 weeks, she said. The hallway seemed to tilt. I stepped back. She reached out, then stopped herself. Good. At least one of us had learned boundaries. You heard that? Yes. And this morning? Yes. At dinner, Sam. I laughed once. Empty. Well, that is horrifying. I know. Do you? Yes. No, Claire. You heard things I did not choose to say. I did not choose to hear them. That does not make it better. Pain flashed across her face, but she nodded. You are right. That stopped me. Claire Bennett, agreeing without defense, was rare enough to belong in a museum. I rubbed both hands over my face. So all of this, I said. The coffee, the dog, the project terms, correcting Lucas. You did that because you heard me planning to leave. Her silence was worse than yes. I nodded slowly. Efficient, Daniel. No, it is very on brand. Her voice sharpened with panic. That is not fair, is it not? I was trying to what? Patch the leak before the quarterly report. She flinched. I regretted it immediately. Then I did not. Both were true. The service hallway hummed with distant music and money. Claire took a careful breath. I did not know you were that unhappy. You did not ask. I thought you understood what this was. I did. Then why? She stopped, swallowed. Why did you stay like that? There it was. The question I had been avoiding because the answer made me look foolish. I looked toward the end of the hallway where a staff member passed with a tray of glasses, pretending not to see us because somewhere along the way, I said. I stopped pretending. Claire did not move. I know the contract. I continued. I know I signed it. I know you did not promise me anything else. That is why I did not ask you for more than you agreed to give. Her eyes shone. You should have told me. I smiled faintly. You would have offered an amendment. The worst part was that she knew it was true. A small broken sound left her, not a sob. Claire did not sob. It was more like her breath had found a crack. I stepped back. I need air. Daniel, please go speak to your senator. I do not care about the senator. I looked at her. She looked terrified of her own sentence. For a moment, hope moved in me again. Stupid and alive. Then my mind supplied the correction. Tonight she does not care. Tomorrow the calendar will. Claire closed her eyes as if struck. I walked past her. This time she did not stop me. Chapter 4. I did not go home that night. That sounded more dramatic than it was. I did not storm out of the hotel. I did not speed through rain. I did not drink in a bar while a singer ruined old love songs in the corner. I took a rideshare to my studio, loosened my tie, and slept badly on the leather sofa in my office under a blanket. June kept there for winter site visits. At 6:12 a.m., Manny found me. He stood in the doorway holding 2 coffees and a paper bag. You dead, emotionally or legally, whichever affects payroll. Payroll is safe. Then, emotionally dead is fine. He tossed the bag at me. Inside was a breakfast sandwich. Manny believed any crisis could be improved by eggs. I sat up with a groan. My back had entered a formal complaint. You wearing yesterday's suit? He asked. No, he stared. Yes, rich people again. Rich people again. He nodded like that, explained the known universe. By 8, I had showered at the gym nearby and changed into work clothes from the emergency duffel in my truck. By 9, I was deep inside the firehouse, measuring the old beam pockets and trying not to think about Claire hearing the ugliest, saddest parts of me. The building helped. The firehouse was beautiful under the neglect. Red brick, arched doors, iron pulley marks still visible near the ceiling where hoses had once dried. The city wanted it saved, developers wanted it profitable, Bennett Group wanted it prestigious, I wanted it left with a soul. June crouched near the east wall with a flashlight. We have moisture damage behind this panel. How bad? Bad enough to be expensive, not bad enough to be interesting. Story of my life. She looked over her shoulder. You okay? Apparently everyone had decided to ask that now. Yes. No offense, but you have the face you make when a client says they want historic character, but also all white interiors. That is a serious accusation. You deserve it. Before I could respond, a black car stopped outside the open bay door. I knew the car. Of course, I knew the car. Claire stepped out wearing a grey coat over a cream blouse, completely wrong for a dusty job site, and somehow still looking like the building had been. Expecting her, June gave a low whistle. The Queen arrives. Do not call her that. Sorry, your Queen arrives. June. Claire approached carefully, eyes moving over loose boards, stacked tools, taped hazards. I met her halfway. You should not be here without boots, I said. She looked down at her heels. I have boots in the car. That surprised me. Of course you do. I am learning. I did not ask from whom. She gestured toward the building. May I see it? This is an active site. I own it. My insurance does not care. Her mouth twitched. I'd almost smile again. Dangerous. Then I am asking permission from the person responsible for the site. Good answer. Annoyingly good. I called to Manny for spare protective gear. Claire changed into boots beside her car without complaint. The hard hat made her look like a very elegant hostage of workplace safety. I walked her through the main floor. At first I kept my explanation technical: load paths, masonry repair, window restoration, cost risks. Claire listened without checking her phone once. That unsettled me more than if she had taken a call in the old equipment room. She stopped before a wall covered in soot stains. What happened here? Small fire in 1978. Electrical. They repaired the wiring but painted over most of the damage. Can it be cleaned? Yes, but not erased. She looked at me. I looked at the wall. Subtle. Daniel. Maybe next you can point to a cracked foundation and we can both pretend it is about drainage. Claire exhaled slowly. You are very loud for someone standing, silently. I turned to her. She went still. So did I. The building creaked around us. You heard that? Yes. I should have been angry. I was. But there was something absurd about standing in a burned-out room with my Heiress wife in a hard hat while she accidentally confessed to reading my mind through a joke about structural metaphors. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Claire blinked. Then to my astonishment, she laughed too. Not much, not loudly, but enough to change her whole face. It made me miss her, which was unfair because she was standing right there. Claire, I said quieter, this cannot continue. Her laughter faded. I know, I mean it. You cannot use what you hear to manage me. I know. No more surprise coffee strategies, no more project adjustments because I thought something. No dogs, she agreed. And no pretending you did not hear things if you did. She nodded. Can you stop it? I have tried. How? Mostly by telling myself not to listen. And her expression was grim. I am very bad at not listening. Despite myself, I smiled. Then I looked away. She took one step closer, boots crunching on dust. I came here because Evelyn wants to hold a smaller donor walkthrough next week, of course, and because I wanted to apologize without an audience. That pulled my eyes back to her. She stood straight but not cold. Her hands were clasped in front of her, thumb rubbing over thumb, a nervous habit I had noticed 2 years ago and never mentioned. I crossed another line, she said. Not by hearing you. I cannot explain that, but by reacting to what I heard as if your private thoughts were problems for me to solve. I said nothing. Her voice tightened. Yes, I am going to sign the termination agreement. My breath stopped. She looked out at the city, not because I want the marriage to end, because the contract has to. If there is anything after it, it cannot be because you were bound. The words moved through me slowly. Painful. Right. I turned back to the city. Okay, I said. She nodded. We stood there together, not touching for the first time. The end of the contract felt less like a weapon and more like a door. Chapter 10. Claire brought the termination agreement to my apartment herself. No assistant, no courier, no elegant envelope with Bennett Group letterhead, just Claire in jeans and a dark coat, standing outside my door on a rainy Thursday evening, holding a plain folder and looking like she might bolt if I breathed too loudly. I opened the door and stared. You know, people usually text before appearing at someone's apartment. I stood downstairs for 12 minutes trying to decide whether that would be pressure was appearing without warning the less pressure option. No, she admitted. I panicked. That was so unlike her that I stepped aside before I could overthink it. Come in, she entered carefully, eyes moving over the apartment, the drafting table by the window, the lamp, the 2 plates drying beside the sink, the thorn key on the wall, her letter beneath it. She saw the letter. She looked away quickly. I pretended not to notice. Tea? I asked. Yes, please. I made peppermint because of course I did. Inside my head I thought, fantastic. Even in my own apartment I am running the Claire Bennett beverage program. Behind me, she made a small sound. Sorry. She said, you are not allowed to apologize for my sarcasm. It will only encourage me. I was apologizing for hearing it, also encouraging. I handed her the mug, not the chipped one. She noticed her mouth curved faintly, protective of the ugly mug. It has been through enough, so have you. The words landed too softly to defend against. I looked down. She set the folder on the small table. I signed it. The room changed. I knew what it was before I opened it. Termination of private marital agreement. Claire's signature was already there. Clean, precise, final. My line waited beneath it. Daniel Hayes. For 3 years that document had been. The horizon, the clean exit, the proof I was not trapped. Now it sat on my cheap table beside peppermint tea, and I felt like I was looking at a map after the road had washed out. Claire sat across from me. I also brought something else, she said. Another page, not legal paper handwritten. I know letters are not contracts, she said. That is the point. I picked it up. Daniel, the agreement ends because it should end. I will not ask you to extend a contract that gave me too many places to hide. I want a marriage with you, not a public arrangement, not an inheritance shield, not a convenient partnership. I want mornings where I learn your coffee because I should have learned it properly the first year. I want to ask before placing you in rooms. I want to correct people before you have to decide whether the herd is worth naming. I want Lucas and every other person in my life to understand that access to me is not access to your place. I do not expect you to believe this because I wrote it. I expect to spend as long as necessary proving it without owning the outcome. If you sign the termination, I will not contest it. If you need distance, I will respect it. If you decide there is no future for us, I will carry that consequence. But if there is any part of you that wants to know whether I can love you without a contract, I would like the chance to show you. Claire. By the time I finished, the words had blurred slightly. I set the letter down. Claire sat still, pale and silent. I wanted to make a joke. I wanted to flee. I wanted to kiss her. The order changed every 3 seconds. Inside my head I thought, this is how men get emotionally killed in apartments with bad lighting. Claire pressed her fingers to her mouth. I looked at her. Did you just laugh? No, you did. I am sorry. You are laughing while I am suffering. I am not laughing at the suffering. I am laughing at the lighting. I stared, then I laughed too. The sound broke something open. For a minute we just sat there laughing quietly at the absurdity of heartbreak, mind redeading, contract law, and my tragic lamp. When the laughter faded, the hard thing remained. I do not know how to trust this, I said. I know. If you could not hear me, would you have changed? She flinched. Good question. Cruel question necessary. I do not know, she said. The honesty hurt more than a lie would have, she continued, voice unsteady. I want to say yes. I want to tell you I would have realized before you left, but the truth is I was very good at not seeing what made me uncomfortable. I swallowed. So why should I believe this is real? Because I am not asking you to believe quickly. She looked at the termination agreement. Sign it if you need to. My chest tightened. Claire, I mean it. Her voice shook, but she did not take the words back. If the contract is the only reason you stay, I lose you anyway. If fear is the only reason I change, then I have not changed enough. The rain tapped against the windows. I picked up a pen. Claire's face went white. I looked at the signature line. For months I had imagined this moment bringing relief. I thought I would sign, breathe, and become myself again. Instead, I thought of bad coffee, a hard hat in the firehouse, her correcting the photographer, her hands trembling around packing tape, her standing in my ugly apartment, choosing to end the very contract that could keep me near. I set the pen down, not signed, not rejected. Claire did not move. I'm not signing tonight, I said. Her breath caught. That is not forgiveness. I know it is not yes. I know it is. I searched for the word time, she asked. I looked at her. Yes. Tears slipped down her face. She wiped them quickly, almost annoyed. I promised myself I would not cry to influence you. You are allowed to cry, Claire. I do not want it to be a tool. Then do not use it as one. She nodded, crying harder and looking furious about it. I got up, took a clean towel from the kitchen and handed it to her. She looked at it. This is a dish towel. It is clean. It says Pike Place Fish. It is emotionally available. She laughed through the tears. I sat back down. We did not fix the marriage that night. We did something harder. We told the truth without resolving it. When she left, the termination agreement stayed on my table. Her letter stayed beside my father's key, and for the first time, my apartment did not feel like proof that I had failed to be loved. It felt like a place where I could choose. Chapter 11. The firehouse tried to ruin everything 3 weeks later, to be fair. Old buildings often had a flair for timing. The donor opening was not the final launch. It was supposed to be a controlled preview, a way to show major funders the restoration progress before construction moved into the next phase. No speeches longer than 5 minutes, no hard hats near champagne, no live music because Nora had threatened to resign if anyone put a cello near exposed brick. The morning began with rain. By noon it had become the type of Seattle downpour that made umbrellas look symbolic. At 3, June called me from the site. "We have a problem." I was already reaching for my jacket. "What kind?" "Water intrusion near the east wall. Temporary cover failed. We caught it early, but the donor display area is wet and Lucas's vendor placed the archival boards too close to the leak." Archival boards, the historic photo reproductions for tonight. I thought Nora handled those. She did. Lucas changed vendors last week. Of course he did. I drove through rain hard enough to blur traffic lights. By the time I reached the firehouse, the main bay was controlled chaos. June had a crew moving display stands away from the leak. Manny was on a ladder checking the temporary cover. Nora stood in the center of the room with wet hair and murder in her eyes, holding a ruined foam board. "I am going to commit a public relations crime," she announced. "Not before donors arrive," I said. Claire stood near the east wall in boots and a raincoat. Speaking with the site supervisor, when she saw me, relief crossed her face before she masked it. Lucas stood beside her, soaked at the shoulders, but still somehow smug. "It is not as serious as it looks," he said. I looked at the wet floor, the warped display boards, the stained temporary panels, and the exposed area near original masonry. It rarely is in sentences that begin that way. Claire turned to him. "Lucas, where is the vendor contract with my office?" "Get it," he stiffened. "Now, yes, donors were due. In 90 minutes we had 2 choices. Cancel and create rumors, or adapt fast. Work took over. I love that about emergencies. They reduced life to what helped and what did not. Manny, secure the cover and get me photos before and after. June, move all boards away from exterior walls. Nora, kill the display layout and switch to guided stations. Priya is not here, so no one says structural unless the sentence ends with engineer Claire. I need authority to close the east third of the bay. You have it, she said immediately. No committee, no image concern, no delay. Good. We moved for the next hour. The firehouse became a living thing under repair. Staff rolled rugs away from damp areas. Nora rewrote the guest flow on her phone while cursing Lucas in 3 different registers. Claire called Evelyn and calmly informed her that the program would change. I inspected the leak, confirmed no immediate structural threat, and turned the problem into a preservation lesson. People are here to fund restoration. I told Nora, let them see why restoration matters. She stared at me. That is annoyingly usable. I am a professional. You are a menace. By the time donors arrived, the firehouse looked intentional again. Not perfect, better. We had moved the reception to the dry west side, set up guided viewing zones, and placed a sign near the closed east area explaining weather exposure and preservation response. The damaged display boards were gone. The original brick, wet in places, but safe, looked dramatic under work lights. Claire opened the evening, not with polish, with truth. Old buildings do not become valuable because nothing ever goes wrong, she told the crowd. They become valuable because people choose to repair them correctly when problems appear. Her eyes found me briefly. I looked away before my face said too much. The donors loved it. Of course they did. Rich people enjoyed authenticity when it had been made safe for shoes. Still, the night worked until Lucas cornered me near the old equipment room. You handled that well, he said. I continued coiling an extension cord. Thank you, I mean it. I looked at him. He seemed sincere. That made me suspicious. He glanced toward Claire, who was speaking with Evelyn and 2 donors. She is different with you now. I said nothing. I did not think she had it in her. He said that irritated me. Had what to bend? I set down the cord. She is not bending. Lucas smiled faintly. No, what would you call it? Choosing. His smile faded for a moment. I saw the real thing under the polish. Not evil, not even heartbreak. Exactly, more like entitlement, disappointed by reality. I was there before you, he said. Yes, I understood the family before you. Yes, I protected her. Sometimes that landed his jaw tightened. And you walk away and somehow become the moral center of the room. No, then what do you want? I looked toward Claire. She was laughing at something Nora said. Not a big laugh, a real one. I wanted my wife to know I was a person. I said, now I want to know whether we can be married without either of us disappearing. Lucas stared at me. He had no answer for that. Good. Not every conflict needed a speech. Claire appeared beside us. Everything all right? Lucas looked at her, then at me. For what it is worth, he said stiffly. The vendor mistake was mine. I changed the display plan. Claire nodded. I know that surprised him. I will send a report tomorrow, he said. Thank you. He left. I watched him go. That was almost mature, I said. Claire looked after him. He is not a villain. No, he was convenient. That is often more dangerous. She nodded. Rain struck the high windows. The donors began to leave in small clusters, smiling, impressed, convinced they had witnessed something authentic without being inconvenienced by it. When the room finally emptied, I stood in the center of the bay and felt exhaustion settle into my bones. Claire walked up beside me. You saved tonight, she said. We saved tonight. She looked at me. I meant it. Her eyes softened inside my head. I thought if you had stood beside me like this from the beginning, I might never have packed a box. Claire's face crumpled only for a second, but enough. I closed my eyes. I am sorry, she whispered. I know. I hate that I can hear the things that hurt you. So do I. But I am grateful I heard them before you were gone. I looked at her. There was the truth. Neither of us liked. The violation had become the warning bell. Unfair, useful, still a violation. I need to ask you something. I said, okay, if this stops tomorrow, if you never hear another thought from me, what changes? She did not answer quickly. Good. I keep asking, she said out loud. I keep making room for answers I may not like. I keep Lucas and anyone else out of places they do not belong. I keep treating your silence as something to check, not something to use. I breathed in, and if I leave anyway, her eyes shone, then I let you. The words cost her. I saw it. That mattered more than any promise to fight, because Claire Bennett knew how to fight. Letting go was the language she had never learned. I nodded. She reached into her coat pocket and took out my lake house key, not mine, hers. I thought about asking for yours back, she said. Then I realized that was still the wrong question. She placed her key in my palm. I am going to stay at the estate for a while. The lake house should not feel like a place where I am waiting to see what you decide. If you want to go there, go. If you do not, do not. I will not turn home into pressure. I stared at the key. You are giving me the house. No. A faint smile. Even I know that is dramatic. Despite myself, I laughed. I am giving you space, she said. I closed my fingers around the key. Outside, thunder moved over the city. Inside the firehouse, repaired lights glowed against old brick for the first time. I thought restoration might not mean going back. Maybe it meant rebuilding differently enough that the old damage stopped deciding where everyone stood. Chapter 12. The 6 weeks ended on a Sunday. No storm, no dramatic board meeting, no Lucas, just pale morning light across the floor of my apartment, and the termination agreement still unsigned on my table. I woke early and made coffee, good coffee. The chipped mug sat beside the kettle, ugly and loyal for several minutes. I stood in the quiet and let myself feel the shape of the day 3 years earlier. The contract had begun with signatures in a courthouse office that smelt like toner and old carpet. Claire had worn navy. I had worn my only good jacket. We had shaken hands afterward because neither of us knew whether hugging would violate the mood. 6 weeks earlier, I had counted down to freedom because staying felt like disappearing. Now freedom sat in front of me, and I had to decide what to do with it. Not because Claire cried. Not because she corrected Lucas. Not because she wrote a letter beautiful enough to hurt. Because she had changed in ways that cost her something when I was not rewarding her for it. She had stopped using access as affection. She had given me space without turning silence into punishment. She had ended the contract before asking for a marriage. She had learned to ask questions out loud. And I had learned something too. Leaving was not the only proof that I had a spine. Staying could be weak if it meant surrendering boundaries, but staying could also be a choice if the door was open, and I was no longer blocking it with my own body. At 10 o'clock I drove to the lake house. I did not tell Claire. The house stood quiet above the water. The gate recognized my car. The driveway curved through wet green trees. I parked near the front steps and sat for a moment with both keys in my hand. Mine, hers. The house did not look less intimidating, but it looked less like a verdict. Mrs. Whittaker opened the door before I knocked. Her eyes moved to the small box in my arms. Good morning, Mr. Hayes. Good morning, she stepped aside. I set an extra place for breakfast. I smiled. You said that weeks ago. I am patient. That seems manipulative. It is domestic strategy. I laughed. The house smelled like lemon polish, cedar, and the faint trace of peppermint tea. Not Claire. She was not there. Good, hard, necessary. I went upstairs to the master suite. The room had not been reset. The empty spaces for my packed boxes remained empty. Claire had not filled them. She had not erased the evidence of my leaving. On her nightstand sat one book. One of mine, the spine was cracked. A history of American firehouses. She had once called it painfully specific. A note rested on top. Daniel, I borrowed this before you moved the rest. I wanted to understand what you see when you walk into a building everyone else has already decided is too damaged or inconvenient. I think I understand more now. Not enough more, Claire. I sat on the edge of the bed. Not enough more. That was the most honest love language Claire Bennett had ever spoken. I unpacked the box. Not everything. For books, the chipped mug, my father's cufflinks, the ugly lamp, which looked even more tragic in the elegant room, and therefore deserved to stay. Then I drove to the Bennett estate. The family was having Sunday lunch. I knew because Mrs. Whittaker had told me with the innocence of a woman who had never been innocent in her life. The estate dining room was smaller than the formal hall, but still large enough to make soup feel like policy. Evelyn sat at one end. Nora was arguing with a cousin about social media captions. Claire sat halfway down the table, quiet, hair loose, no ring on her right hand because our ring was still on her left. She saw me in the doorway. Everything stopped. Nora actually dropped her fork. Evelyn looked at me, then at Claire, then took a calm sip of water like she had orchestrated the entire universe. Claire stood. She did not rush to me. She did not say my name like a plea. She simply stood there waiting. I walked to her. The room had gone painfully. Silent, I took the termination agreement from my coat pocket. Claire's face went pale. I placed it on the table and signed. Then I placed both lake house keys on top of it, hers and mine. I moved some things back, I said. Her eyes filled. I lifted a hand slightly. I am not moving back into the old marriage. She nodded quickly. I know. I am not renewing the contract. No, I want dates, counselling, separate work boundaries, no Lucas in personal spaces, no making decisions from what you overhear. If you hear something important, you ask me out loud. Yes, she whispered. If I say I need space, it is not a negotiation. Yes, if you start treating my silence like agreement again, I will tell you once, then I will act. Claire nodded, tears slipping down her face. Evelyn's eyes shone faintly, though she would have denied it under oath. Nora was openly crying into a napkin. I looked at Claire and I need you to understand something, anything. I am choosing this because I want to, not because I could not leave. Her breath broke. Then she said the best thing she could have said. I know that is why it matters. For a long moment we only looked at each other. Then Claire held out her hand, not to pull, not to claim, to ask. I took it. The room exhaled. Nora whispered, finally, far too loudly. Evelyn said, Nora, what? We were all suffering. I laughed. Claire laughed too, crying at the same time, which made her look beautifully unqualified to run anything for about 5 seconds. That afternoon we did not announce a reconciliation. We announced nothing. That was part of the change. Not everything between us belonged to rooms full of Bennett over the next months. I kept the apartment. Claire hated my lamp, but never tried to replace it. I hated her calendar discipline, but learned to appreciate being asked, not scheduled. We went to counselling on Wednesday evenings. She answered hard questions without hiding behind vocabulary. I learned to say when something hurt before my mind turned it into a comedy routine for an audience of one. The mind reading faded slowly, and neither of us understood why it had started. Neither of us tried to turn it into magic at first. Claire still heard fragments when emotion ran high. I am scared. Do not shut down. Please choose me because you want me. Each time she would stop and ask, can you say that out loud? Sometimes I could. Sometimes I needed time. She learned to wait. The last time she heard me was 6 months later at the firehouse opening. The building had been restored without being made false. Original brick, repaired lentils, clean windows, old scars visible in the right light. Claire stood beside me as donors moved through the main bay. Lucas attended as a commercial strategy advisor, shook my hand politely, and left early. His place in Claire's life had become exactly what it should have been. Professional, bounded, boring. Nora gave a speech that was only mildly embarrassing. Evelyn told me my father would have approved of the work that nearly undid me. At the end of the night, Claire and I stood in the old equipment room where the soot stain remained faintly visible on the wall. She looked at it. You kept it. Yes. Why? Because restoration is not pretending damage never happened. She looked at me then. I love you, she said. No strategy, no panic, no contract, just the words inside my head, I thought. There you are. Claire's eyes widened. A tear slipped down her cheek. You heard that? I asked softly. She nodded. Last one. I think so. Good, good. I took her hand. Now you will have to ask. She smiled through the tear. Daniel Hayes. Do you love me? I looked at the woman who had once treated marriage like a clause, and had learned painfully and patiently to treat me like a choice. Yes, I said. I love you. Her fingers tightened around mine. Outside, the restored firehouse glowed against the rainy street. Old damage still visible, new strength holding, no expiration date, no hidden clause, no contract pretending to be a marriage, just two people who had finally learned that love was not proven by never leaving. Sometimes it was proven by making sure both people were free to go, then choosing to stay. If you could hear the person you love quietly planning to leave, would you fight for the relationship or would you let them go? And if they stayed, what would you have to change so they knew it was finally their choice too, of the E&D?